You're listening to Becoming More Me, the podcast for high achieving entrepreneurs who want to be more and do less. I'm Theresa Levine, here to guide you on this never ending journey of becoming. And have you ever spent much time really contemplating the mind-body connection, the energy system, the way we show up in this world? I know that if you've listened to this podcast, you've probably spent a little bit of time thinking about it, but so many people don't. And my guest today, Denise Schoenwald, is definitely someone who contemplates this. She is a dedicated registered nurse. She has been for over 30 years. She's now working as a nationally licensed mental health counselor, and she's a published author. She's in Sarasota, Florida. And when I say published author, she's written 4, maybe 5 books in the last 4 years, really prolifically producing since she decided to step into life as an author. She has a deep understanding of emotional challenges faced by patients and their families, a holistic approach, and likes to integrate mental and physical well-being. We're going to talk about that a lot today. She's a spiritual teacher, a certified family mediator. One of her books is even for children. It's a children's book. So she understands a diverse range of challenges as well as a diverse range of solutions. And she's going to give us some great actionable things that we can do today. And we're also going to dive into the world of energy and chakras and just really tap into how to unleash all of that power within you and master your emotions. And it all starts now. Thanks for joining me today, Denise. I'm glad to have you here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'd love to start with just getting to know you as a person real quick. Tell us a little bit about where you live, who you love to spend your time with, maybe some hobbies or favorite things of yours.
I'm from Sarasota, Florida. And as you may have seen on the news, we've just gone through a series of hurricanes.
Absolutely. It's been tough.
So I'm happy to say right now my life is pretty dull and boring. So I love that. I'm a
Yes.
therapist. I'm a mental health counselor. My children are all older and on their own, thankfully. I enjoy boxing. I'm a tennis player. Of course, in sunny Florida, we're outside every day. So I really have a wonderful life down here in Florida.
It's beautiful down there. I know you mentioned when we were communicating beforehand, you used to live in Baltimore and I'm in Maryland, and I actually used to live in like the Miami Coral Gables area. So
Mhm.
understanding each other's worlds, I definitely miss the Florida weather every now and then, that's for sure. Were
And we
you
just watched
impacted?
one.
Were you impacted by the hurricanes where you are personally?
Well, we had 3. So the first one, we had some flooding in our home, unfortunately, which, was something we had to repair. The second one hit the beaches quite a bit. We're probably about 20 minutes from the beaches. The beaches just got wiped out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
A lot of restaurants. The third one, Milton, came in at 115 miles an hour, did a lot of damage to certain areas that it hit. We just had some shingles gone and just a
Lucky.
lot of cleanup. But there's something called hurricane fatigue, and many in Sarasota are been impacted, including myself. It's a
Definitely.
lot to sort of recover from.
Absolutely. And I'm sure you know exactly the kind of mental health strategies that need to be implemented to be able to be resilient and bounce back from that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what got you interested in the field of mental health in the first place? How did you get into that work?
I started off as a critical care nurse and loved it, absolutely loved it. But as I was starting to get older, I realized physically 12-hour shifts and on call and so forth was just really not going to be realistic. So I wanted to go back and get my master's, and I couldn't decide what to get it in. I thought maybe I'll get it in nursing. Didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. Thought about like hospital management. Didn't really think I had it to do that either. And then at the time I was volunteering for Big Sister.
Nice.
And so I met with somebody, and we were sort of a coordinator. And I said, well, how about I meet with you again on Friday? And she said, I can't. I'm going back to school to become a mental health counselor. And I thought, that sounds really interesting. I could see myself doing that. So 5 years later, at the time I was already almost in my 50s, I was in my mid 40s. And it just, for me, was just a natural fit. So I really love it.
Amazing. And I know you were so kind as to send me one of your books, this one, Self-Therapy, Increasing Your Awareness About Mental Health, and then you and How to Live a Happier Life. And you mentioned you have another book. What's the title of your other book?
Healing Your Body by Mastering Your Mind.
Yeah,
And
I
that
love
one
that.
came about because I loved medicine because I felt like the body was so sophisticated and I understood how it worked and how it functioned. And then when I bridged over to mental health, I thought it was very blurry. It's like, why do people get anxiety? Why does trauma affect some and some people are able to move through it? And I thought my husband said, well, he said mental health is a little bit of a soft science. And I thought, well, that doesn't really make any sense. But once I started studying energy, I was realizing how emotions affect the body and then ultimately affect our physical health.
Yeah.
So my first book is about how all that works together. I think many people, including myself at the time, didn't really understand how it all sort of works together, either in a good way or a not so good way.
Absolutely. Did you have any particular favorite mentors that helped you understand energy better?
Well, I love Michael Singer. He's sort of a
Yes.
spiritualist who wrote The Untethered
He's
Soul.
there in Florida too.
Yes, I've met him a couple times.
Nice.
I love just studying from shamans and obviously read lots of books, done a lot of energy work with energy healers. And I really wanted to open myself up to all religions, understanding
Mhm.
spirituality and the impact that has on us. So basically it's been years and years of constant studying and really appreciating how sophisticated and wonderful the body is.
Absolutely. And it always blows my mind how I think most people don't even contemplate energy and the fact that it literally is everything. And then once you kind of open up that chasm and start to realize like just the different ways that we can impact things with our energy, our frequency, all of that, it's like all of these doors open and it's just such an expansive uh, place to learn and be. Yeah,
Yes, and it certainly helps you connect a lot of dots because you think,
absolutely.
and with medicine, we're pretty good when we have pain or a symptom. We know there's something wrong with the body. We go to the doctor and so forth. Psychologically, we struggle with anxiety, we struggle with depression, and yet we have no idea why that's happening. You know,
Sure. And then there's all these different levels. Like I was just talking with another guest on my podcast, and we're talking about how like there's always a deeper level that we can heal or transform or
the
feel better or what have you. So even when we feel like we've mastered it or we've like hit that plateau and where our mental health is amazing, there's always something that's going to come along and give us another challenge or another reason why we need to continue the work.
Yes, which I'm learning as I get older to be grateful for.
Hmm.
That used to sort of bring me down and I would say, why am I not doing this? Why am I not good enough? And so forth. Now I understand it's just sort of a segue to growth and doing something at the next level. So I've learned to appreciate it a little bit more.
Absolutely. That gratitude and appreciation for it makes all the difference in the world because, and I was literally in this vibration this morning with some things I've had going on personally of you can't be focused on the problem and the solution at the same time if you want to heal and grow. How does that resonate?
Yes, not only that, but the first thing that we go to is the mind to figure it out. And, the mind's not as insightful as we like to think it is.
Hmm.
And then we start with the fear of all the problems and we get stuck in the problem. And it can be really difficult because as we know, mental energy is quite strong and powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you mentioned that your first book talked a lot about chakras and things of that nature. What's your perspective on healing through the lens of the chakra system?
The funny thing of how I discovered chakras was completely backwards. Because when I first started in psychology and I was practicing, I didn't want to write anything down and I didn't want to sit in front of a computer because I wanted to really listen.
Hmm.
And as I was listening and with to all different clients with all different problems, I was noticing patterns. And I was thinking, wow, all the people with this sort of physical problem seem to struggle with this mental health issue. At the time, I was working with a psychiatrist and he was also a shaman. And I said, strangest coincidence. I've noticed this and that and so forth. And I said, I find that really odd. And he said, well, you really need to study the chakras. And I had no idea what he was talking about. Didn't know how to spell it, didn't know what. And I said, oh, okay, that sounds great. So I went back and I started learning. And the more that I started to learn, I thought, well, this makes complete sense. Different emotions are sort of processed in the different chakras and sort of understood when they're blocked how they manifest physically. And that just sort of opened the floodgates to so much learning for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my eyes were open to the idea of manifestation in general, just being so connected with the chakras. And a lot of people, I think that we manifest from the bottom up when
Mhm.
really it's the top down if you're looking at the
Yes.
chakras and the way that those like ideas in the seventh chakra come all the way down. And when they're out of alignment, our energy is all messed up, then we end up manifesting something totally different than what that original idea was. And
Yes.
when it finally comes into the root and comes into physical reality. So
Mhm.
that's awesome. I always love perspectives on that. There's so many different ways that we can interpret their role in our life, in our healing, in our transformation, and in our health. And I know you talk a lot about the link between our physical health, our well-being, and our mental health. Can you expand upon that a little bit?
When I first meet someone, so they'll come into the office, I'm going to start by asking you a bunch of questions. And it's sort of a nice icebreaker too, because they come in a little bit nervous about what we're
Sure.
going to talk about, what they're going to say. And so I ask things about, what are your hobbies? Are you religious? What medicines do you take? I used to start by saying, are you in good health? And they would say yes. And then they would tell me they were on 15 medications. So
Yeah.
maybe not so good health. So a lot of times we think we're healthier than we actually are.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to determine when I'm asking all these sort of random questions is I'm trying to understand the nervous system. So I'm understanding the vibrational frequency of where they are.
Sure.
Usually, when I know what physical problems they're struggling with, I can tell you about where their chakras are blocked, just because that's sort of where it's sat physically. The sort of the key or the trick is once I've learned that, now to sort of get them to a place where they're willing and understand so that they can start healing. Because it's very difficult, particularly if we've had something in the body for many, many years. We also can get very committed to our anxiety, because as we know,
Definitely.
mental energy is very strong. Trauma can sit in the body for many, many years, and it's very frightening to sort of allow that to release sometimes. So for me, it's quite an honor and a privilege to do that, but you have to do it in a way that's certainly not going to help them become more fearful and hold it even cling to it more tightly.
Absolutely. What kind of clients do you tend to work with? Is there any particular type of person that you tend to work with?
It used to be a lot of anxiety, depression, some trauma. And because I was an ICU nurse, I sort of love the variety. And now lately I've been seem to see a lot of couples. So I just finished a book. It's called Elephants Don't Marry Giraffes, talking about
Oh, I love
relationships
it.
and dynamics and so forth. But it's interesting how I guess energy works, but I'll seem to get a theme. Like I'll see grief for maybe, I don't know, 2 weeks. And then the next time I'll turn around and I'll get a lot of anxiety. So it seems to come in different waves.
Yeah.
And it's all just, it's such an honor and you know this too, working with somebody and helping them create change.
Oh, absolutely. It's so much fun. Also, I notice the same thing. If I'm doing a particular workshop topic or what have you, it's usually the same things start mirroring themselves in my life and with my
Mhm.
clients. So I think it just has to do with kind of that law of attraction of what we focus on, we create more of. And especially if you're in the energy of writing a book on something, then there's definitely an attractive quality there. So you're quite the prolific writer then. Is this going to be book number three?
I've had four, and
Wow.
I have a children's book coming out about a little boy who's in the middle of his parents' very contentious divorce. Just
That's neat.
something that we see a lot of, unfortunately. And I think it's something that really needed to be written. So it's being illustrated now.
And you mentioned looking for cues about clients' nervous system. What are some of your favorite ways to approach regulation or nourishment of the nervous system?
I have in my office a little graph, and it sort of has different emotions and their vibrational hertz. Because I think it's many people don't understand the impact of different emotions that they hold, how difficult it is for the body to handle them.
Yeah. Do you use like the
Example,
Hawkins scale of consciousness?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay, I've done a podcast on that before. So if anybody wants to know more of that, like there's a Becoming More Me podcast all about the scale of consciousness. Learn more. It's life changing.
And I think it's key because a lot of times we really need to see it and understand it and visualize it.
Hmm.
But something, an energy like guilt, which
Yeah.
a lot of women we attach to guilt very quickly. It's very hard for the body to hold.
Yep.
And
I think
then
a lot of people don't realize too that they have to go through the anger. in order to get to those higher vibration emotions that they want, that they can't just skip over it from like the low level guilt and shame and everything else. They've got to go through that portal.
Yes. And sometimes they just can't go through it. And then whatever they've done in that anger energy, then they go back to guilt and shame because of what they've said or done.
Have you joined the Becoming More Me community over on School, one of the fastest growing learning platforms without distractions and ads? If no, I'd love to see you there. My community is full of amazing, busy-minded entrepreneurs who are working on becoming who they feel called to be in this world, in life, in business, with their health, with their wealth, with their relationships, and doing it in a way that's fun and pleasurable. I have over $15,000 worth of actionable resources, things you can start using and implementing today, as well as all the information that you need if you're interested in small group coaching, one-on-one work, or any of the other services that I have to offer you, including the Becoming More Me with EFT program. Hop on over to School, SKOOL.com/discovery. Type in my name, join the community, and I cannot wait to welcome you there.
But, anxiety is also at the same vibrational frequency as grief. And people can relate to that. You say, have you ever lost somebody or a pet or something and they go, oh my gosh, that it's such a heavy feeling. And I say, the anxiety is also at the same vibrational frequency, not realizing how hard that is for the body to chemically sort of deal with daily.
Yeah, absolutely. So you use the map of consciousness, and then how do you leverage that for them to step into a more regulated nervous system?
Well, the other thing that I want to know the first time is what they go to for ease. So I'll say something like, do you smoke or do you drink, how much do you drink and so forth. I'm finding that a lot of us go to our devices for ease. We
Yeah.
get on social media and so forth. So what I'm understanding is how is the nervous system doing and what are we automatically doing with probably without even realizing it? What is the mind doing? What is the mind going to for ease or relaxation? That really gives me a good understanding about where the nervous system is. So once I've shown the Hawkins scale and they're looking at it, we have a really good understanding of where we want to try to go to some of these higher vibrational frequencies. Fortunately for me and probably for you too, they're willing by the time they get to us.
Sure.
And that's very helpful. And so they'll usually say, I don't know why I'm like this. And I said, well, it doesn't really matter why. It matters that you're here and you're willing to sort of work on it and address some of these issues.
Absolutely. Do you see all of your clients in person or do you see them virtually?
I'm licensed to see people nationally. So I have some, obviously, they're over Zoom. A lot come in person. People like that too. And, they both have their advantages. The Zoom is nice because people can do it, in their home or on their break or so forth. The in-person I like also because I also can do some energy work and so forth.
That's a nice combination.
Mhm.
So, for me, as an ADHD mom of four, running businesses from home and everything else, I know firsthand how easy it can be to put the self-care aside or not pay attention to it. Do you have any favorite go-to practices to recommend to people who are busy?
Yes. And the self-care is key, as
Yes,
you
it
know.
is.
It's the first thing that we let go of, but probably the most important.
Yep.
Um,
I have not, it's a non-negotiable for me. Like I track and make sure it's happening
yes.
every day, but of course there are times when we get off track and things happen, and boy, do I notice it.
Yes, I realize it too, because when I know better than to let it slide because it comes out in my temperament.
Me
And everybody
too.
around me is affected. And so I tried to take responsibility for that because that's a Denise problem.
Yep. Yep.
And
I notice it in my human design. My like not self is frustration. So when
yes,
I'm not taking very good care of myself, I definitely notice that come out to let me know I am definitely not like in alignment with where I need to be and I need to get back on track.
yes, mine is irritability. I'll want to say something snarky or I don't know, on edge and so
Mhm.
forth. And for me, it's a good indication that my nervous system is not in balance.
Right.
And that's something that I need to do. But as far as practices, I have many. One is every morning I start with like a 15-minute meditation, and it's mostly just some time to myself to ground and to sort of get myself in a really good state of mind.
Yes.
In the evenings, I have a gratitude journal. I read a little either devotional or some sort of, affirmation and so forth. I try during the day to, at least if I can, because we have beautiful weather, to get outside and sit outside for maybe 15 minutes. As you know, when you have a busy schedule, you don't have hours and hours to dedicate to something, but I try to take little
No.
snippets of time, particularly if I'm noticing my temperament's getting a little bit off,
Yeah.
to
I
do
notice
something.
sometimes even just I see a lot of my clients virtually and they love it when I'm happy and grounded. Sometimes I just take my calls with them outside on Zoom
Mhm.
and it makes such a difference. And I think it like grounds them too, to like to see me in that environment also instead of just in my office all the time.
And the fact that we as practitioners and helpers and healers know that it within ourselves. We're not only the teachers, but sometimes we have to be the students.
Oh, absolutely. Always learning, always a
Mhm.
student. That's for sure.
Mhm.
Are there any other practices that you love?
For me, exercise is key. If I don't, I mean, after the hurricane, everybody, we were busy picking up shingles and debris and all of that. So we really weren't getting out to exercise. And I really noticed it, particularly feeling very sad.
Mm,
I needed that. Some people I just needed to get out and go back to, so I tried to get back to my normal routine and let all the other stuff, it didn't all have to be done today, although that's how we feel. That's what the
absolutely.
mind tells us. The mind
I
says it's
definitely
done.
notice when I don't exercise. My husband and I start off like every morning. That's like the first thing we do after we
Yes.
like get up, get dressed, take care of the things that need to get taken immediately, and then we're out the door, walking, lifting weights, whatever, first thing in the morning. And I feel like that's one of those habits I put into place when my kids were really little, when first thing in the morning was the only time that I could almost guarantee I could have to myself. And it's a habit that I've never regretted forming, getting up
Yes.
early and getting to it. And you said you like to box, right?
I do. I started that a couple of years ago, and I I just sort of wanted something other than playing tennis because I enjoy playing tennis too. But it's a really good mental workout because most of it I realize that I always think I can't do it, and it's just hitting against a bag, and it's an hour. It's just a wonderful like workout. But as a practitioner, I don't want to tell people to do things that I'm not doing.
Oh yeah, we see eye to eye there. I think it's very important to walk our talk. I do all of the same therapies and participate in them that I would ask my clients to take part in. And yeah, I would never want to suggest something that I wouldn't be willing to do myself.
Yes, particularly when I notice I'm not doing something. And I say, well, you ask other people to do it, and now you're coming up with an excuse why you're not doing it. So
Yeah.
it's really good for me to sort of notice and to also stay accountable.
Right. And I think, practitioner to practitioner, and knowing there's a lot of different practitioners and coaches that also listen to this, I think that's one of those things that ends up triggering that imposterism
Mhm.
that we can experience. Do you have any feelings or takes on that?
Absolutely. I saw it in nursing. I would look around and I would say, as a group, collectively, we're the most unhealthiest people I've ever seen. And so when I was an ICU nurse, this is when I really got into exercise and weightlifting and so forth. Just and also learning when I wasn't in the hospital to get enough sleep and so forth. And typically nurses, we work all night long and then we stay up till 1 o'clock in the afternoon to get all our chores done and then go back to work with, not enough sleep. And so
Right.
I really started to be mindful of that because I wanted to go back into the hospital with being sort of refreshed and ready to go.
It's hard though, the way the system's designed as far as that kind of a job is
Mhm.
laid out, and yet it really challenges your sense of integrity. When we're
Totally.
out of integrity, then usually, that irritation, that frustration, that not self, it's like we sense that misalignment.
Yes, as far as psychologically, some of the therapists and so forth, are really need to walk their own walk, talk the talk and walk the walk.
Right. And then we end up feeling like there's either that imposterism or that not enoughness when we don't. And then we realize,
Mhm.
oh, goodness, we're still human.
Yes. Yes.
We didn't morph into the superheroes we feel like sometimes, even though we have amazing capabilities to help other people. I always say I tend to help the people that have the same issues that I once had and still deal with.
Mhm.
It's that never ending layers of things to work through.
Yes. And then we realize we're all connected.
Yeah, I love the law of one and the idea that, what heals in you then heals in me, and the
Mhm.
things that are challenging you are also probably challenging me, that we are all are connected. How do you see that in your life and your practice?
Absolutely. And it's interesting. I'll be talking to somebody about something and then I'll go and read like my daily either devotional or affirmation and it addresses the exact same subject. So
Yeah,
I just say because I realize the universe is communicating to me and I understand that and I welcome it.
that's lovely. And oh, I just had another question right on the tip of my tongue and it has left me. Let's see where it is hiding in this ADHD brain of mine. Do you deal with ADHD at all in your practice?
I do.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, give me some
Yes.
insights on that while I find the question that's rumbling around in my brain.
A lot of time, and I think we all we're such a busy, overstimulated society. In fact, and this is sort of brings on the anxiety. We feel like we have all of these things to do and no time to do it, and so forth. And so it's learning ways to sort of cope with that work.
Right.
Some people love lists. For me, these practices of like meditation and taking 15 minutes or so here and there just to be still.
Yeah.
I also challenge my mind with my thoughts. I mean, every thought that comes in, I think, what's answering this? Is this my mind or is this what we call our higher self?
Hey, interrupting this episode super quick because I'll bet you didn't know that you can hop on a free, no strings 15-minute call with me and get answers and insights into those things that are challenging you the most in your life and business right now. And receive several insights from me that will really help you to start moving the needle in those areas where you desire transformation, be it your business, your personal life, your health, wealth, relationships, all the things. So go to gamechangingconversation.com, select a time, and we will meet and have a conversation about what's going on in your life and the outcomes that you would most like to create in the next several months. Can't wait to meet you and chat with you on a call. Now back to the episode. Sure.
Yeah. Our
Yeah.
mind is always fearful.
Yeah, and it's hard to act from a place of love if we're in fear. That's for sure. I remember
Mhm.
what I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you how you came about helping people in relationships from the work that you were doing before. I've felt that pull a lot lately, and it's been creeping into what I'm doing. So I'm wondering how it came about for you.
Well, it was really interesting. A couple years ago, because I'm in practice by myself, I hired someone to market me next because I didn't want to do any of that. And so, of course, they see who's calling and who's searching and so forth. And so he comes back maybe 3 or 4 weeks later and he says, the number one search are for couples counseling, relationship help. And I was like, oh, I really don't do that. So they really started targeting that market. And so now all of a sudden, I had so many couples calling, and I was noticing a lot of like how they connect
Hmm.
because vibrationally, a lot of people they say, oh, we fight all the time. Well, this is where they're attaching to each other. I was noticing a lot with personality disorders, how they were finding other people that had very similar problems and I saw where they were attaching. I think so I wrote like maybe, I don't know, 12 or 14 stories. And then I talked about psychologically, like how they come about and what you can do about them. So that's how Elephants Don't Marry Giraffes came about.
That's cool. When will that book be coming out?
It's out.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's already out.
Yes. It's out.
Wonderful. What got you into writing?
Over COVID, this is when Healing Your Body by Mastering Your Mind came out. Obviously, we all had a lot of time on our hands. People have been asking me forever, you should write a book. And I said, oh, I don't know what I would write about. And I'm like, oh, write about something. So since I had a lot of time on my hands, I thought, what can I write about? And I thought, maybe energetically how our mental health affects our physical health. And then it just poured out of me, just writing, 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 writing. And it came about very, very quickly.
Yeah. So the first
After
book was 2020? You like haven't stopped.
Yeah, well, then after that, people would ask me, like, what can I do about my people pleasing? How do you set healthy boundaries? Like little topics that I want. And I thought, you know what? I'll just write a quick book, and that's the book that you have on a lot of different topics that people frequently ask me about. The children's book, it's called Getting Back to Happy, was a little girl that I had that came to me after having a lot of stomach issues. And she'd been to a nutritionist and she had a coach, and finally she came to me and somebody was teasing her at school. So that was causing her a lot of they thought it was diet related, but it was just really a lot of anxiety. So she
Sure.
and I did the book together.
Oh, that's
So
really
that.
cool. I
Mhm.
love that. You mentioned boundaries. What's your best advice for people who are struggling with creating or maintaining boundaries?
One of the things that I recommend, which is a pretty easy exercise to do, is I ask people to draw a circle, and inside the circle, write the values that you have, things that you offer. Like, I'm very reliable, I'm very respectful. It doesn't have to be, I've got a doctorate degree. It has to be things that you really value about yourself, what you have to offer. Once you're established and most people really have difficulty with this because they go, I don't know what I have to offer. Well, if you don't know what you have to offer, it's difficult to enforce boundaries. And so once you understand that and you have a really good solid sort of circle, people that you meet will challenge your boundaries. I mean, if you're an honest person and I'm a dishonest person, I'm going to see if you'll do something dishonest. People say, well, I feel uncomfortable setting boundaries. You don't have to feel uncomfortable if you have the language. Many times I'll say to a client, thank you very much, but that's not something I would be comfortable with. To say, you're disrespecting me. I'm not putting up with that. I don't have to be so confrontational.
Right.
Just kindly define what I'm willing to do and what I'm not willing to do. People who appreciate that will gravitate towards you. You'll get more of the energies that you want. And people that don't respect that will go away from you because you don't serve them in any way.
Right. And I think you're absolutely right, Denise, that people don't know how to communicate about it. They don't know
Mhm.
how to pick out the right words to convey their boundary. So instead, they just fold.
Yes. And a lot of people, in fact, I just had this yesterday. The person's being very abusive, and he says, well, I don't want to just not answer and be mean. And I said, you don't have to. I said, you can not answer because that's a boundary after you already answered once or twice and they keep going. This is manipulative. Well, I don't
Yeah.
want to be mean. I said, well, it's never mean when you should never support somebody to do something that's immoral in your eyes or disrespectful and so forth.
Absolutely. Can you share any kind of stories or relate anything from when like merging physical and mental care made a really profound impact on your clients?
A lot of times, particularly fear and low self-worth and all of that, that sits in the solar plexus. That sits in the belly. And what I was just describing about that circle, what I understand when usually what happens when that solar plexus is blocked is they overeat, they don't eat, or they drink a lot of alcohol. Those are sort of one of the three things that people do that's sort of a symptom of having a blocked solar
Yeah.
plexus. So what I was describing about the circle is to really get them to get a better sense of themselves, what they have to offer. And if they struggle with a lot of nausea or a lot of stomach issues, just sort of getting that empowerment back really will help a lot of those symptoms.
For sure. Absolutely. What do you hope your clients take away from working with you? And what's the first step that you would recommend someone take towards a more holistic approach to healing?
My goal for over time is that they don't need me. So my
Me too.
goal is to teach and to get them to understand the body and to learn how to self-regulate.
Yeah.
Most people, they notice that they're very, very anxious. They know that they drink too much. They're very well aware that they're 30 pounds overweight, but they're not getting to the root issue of why. And so my goal, or what I hope that they will understand, is all of that, how it connects and how to correct it without drinking or without smoking too much or without spending 6 hours on your device a day or however long they're spending. So that's ultimately what I try to do
Sadly, most people probably are spending 6 hours on their device a day. It's
and
crazy.
more. You'd be
Yeah.
surprised.
And it's usually such a block to our connection. And
Mhm.
so just having this discussion with somebody else this morning about, how we kind of like hide in there when we're feeling a little awkward or when we're feeling
Mhm.
like things aren't quite right. And then we miss all these opportunities to connect on a deeper level.
We do, and it's a very pulling energy. We don't realize that it's very hard on the mind,
It's
and
addictive.
it is. And then what happens is we're not staying present, and we're not sort of again enjoying life for really what it has to offer.
Absolutely. Where can people find you and learn more about what you're doing or participate in your services?
I have a website. It's my name, DeniseSchoenwald.com. Talks all about my books, has other podcasts that I've been on. Certainly, if any of the readers would like to visit it and pick a book, I'd be happy to send them a copy.
Oh, that's really sweet.
Mhm.
And is there anything else that you want to leave with today?
What I would hope that I would leave listeners with is understanding that a mental health counselor is somebody that can really sort of help you through, even if you're not having a particular problem. Developmentally, we go through a lot of challenges and we struggle with those. And to have somebody like a coach or a therapist to help them through that is really something that we do as a gift for ourselves.
Beautiful. And then just one more question, and that would be since we are on the Becoming More Me podcast, personally and professionally, what's on the horizon for you? What are you working on? How are you becoming more of who you feel called to be in the world at this time?
Well, certainly a lot of ideas come to me through meditation. Whether I have another book in me or not, right now, not really feeling that. Certainly doing a lot of work and research and books and constantly trying to evolve to the next level. I was speaking quite a bit. I volunteer a lot for the police department down here, offering my services to the community. So
Nice.
what I love about the spiritual life is I just enjoy it as it comes, even though some of it's pretty nerve-wracking.
I love that. Well,
Mhm.
thank you so much for being here with us
Welcome.
today and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom.
Thank you.
And for all of you listening, I know there's so many choices you have when you're choosing a podcast to listen to. So thank you for listening to Becoming More Me. Thanks for spending some of your precious time with me today. If you loved this episode, please leave a review or simply share it with someone else who would get great benefit from it too. If you share on social media, please tag me so I can personally connect and thank you. Until next time, keep taking bold and brave steps towards becoming more of who you want to be in this world. You are capable, you are worthy, and you are enough. And if your inner critic is still trying to argue with those facts, hit me up. We've got work to do.